the recording. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate that you've taken some time out. And it occurred to me when we started advertising the FIG Working Week in Brisbane and that abstracts were open. It's possible that people were like, well, how do I do an abstract? We don't write abstracts really normally for the conferences that we hold here, generally speaking. And so what's involved? What is FIG looking for? What does that look like? And so we're really encouraged to have so many people interested in this process, and we'll be making this recording available probably ongoing. I mean, it'll be designed for an FIG, but I think the principles will work across any of the conferences that you might have an opportunity to speak at. So we really want to see as many Australians submitting abstracts to present and speak. My experience from the US FIG and the Ghana FIG, I've only been to two, was that the majority of presenters were from those countries. So I think we have a really good opportunity to present our work from Australia to the world. And so I really encourage you to take some time to prepare this. So the working week is going to be the 6th to the 10th of April in Brisbane next year. So plan to be there. They haven't opened registrations yet, but they have opened the abstract process. Abstracts are due on the 1st of December. Okay, so you've got a little bit of time, but we wanted to get this out to you as early as possible to give you time to prepare. And we would recommend that you don't prepare it on the 30th of November, though some people probably will do that. I'm going to encourage you to pick a day over the next 3 weeks and put some time in your diary. I've got Volker with me today, and the reason Volker is with us is because he's like, to me, the abstract genius. So he's the publications officer for APAS, which is the Association of Public Authority Surveyors in New South Wales. And they run a conference every year, and every year they go out for a call for abstracts, and they actually put a book together which is made available to everybody to have a look at afterwards. And it's quite amazing. I think AIMS also do abstracts, but I just think Volker has done it exceptionally well over many, many years. And so I thought he would likely have something to contribute for us today on what we should be looking at, how we prepare an abstract, what the assessors, if we call them that, might be looking for when it comes to an abstract. Because I can tell you I have submitted abstracts and Volker has helped fix mine on occasion, and they don't always get accepted. So I just want to say, look, you may or may not get one accepted, but the process we think is worthwhile. And I want to say that I want you to forward me a copy of your abstract, because if you can't present at FIG, I'll bet we've got a Surveyors Australia or other events somewhere that we'd love to have you presented at. So we think we've got some great work to showcase across Australia, and we'd love to include yours. So I'll just frame up the working week for you first, and then as we dive into, how do you do it, that's where Volker will really take over. But it is important that when you draft something or when you're putting something together, that you address the theme or the concept of what it is that FIG are looking for. And this year, and this is all on their website, okay, so fig.net, there's a link there to the working week. You can read this in, there's a lot more detail there. But the theme for 2025 is going to be collaboration, innovation, and resilience, and how we champion a digital generation. So, FIG is very much focused on sustainability. Resilience was also the theme this year. That future generation is also a big theme internationally in surveying, much like it is for us around surveying careers. So I think, there's a lot that we can draw from on what we're doing here in Australia that I think the world could benefit from hearing about what it is that we're doing. So they're looking for, things have converged, the profession is changing, and as a result, it's redefining how we create, deliver, and communicate value within the context of sustainability. So we don't talk a lot about surveying and sustainability together, which is something that we certainly will be changing from Surveyors Australia perspective. But this is the real question, and I think it's likely in your individual workplaces, whether you're in government or whether you're in private sector, you are actually working towards sustainability, because that is the theme everywhere we go now, isn't it? So in the building of communities that we are involved in, there's a lot of sustainability. In fact, in New South Wales, our Excellence Award winner won from the sustainability category, which might be the first time ever one of those has actually won the major Sir Thomas Mitchell Award. So really interesting to see even how that is changing in our states. So awareness of trends, mega trends, so what are they? What are they in your space? What does that look like in the area that you work in? And how is that helping towards resilience? So you'll see that this is really big picture thinking that they're looking for. And we might think, well, I just created a title. Like, that's not very exciting, is it? But it is, right? Because we're changing how we do that and the process that we go through and the final outcome and where that comes to. So that digital age. And, I don't know if there's anybody from LRS on this call or not, but I think there's a great opportunity to talk about digital plans and that process that we've undergone in New South Wales. Queensland's got another process underway. South Australia is probably leading. So perhaps somebody from South Australia will present on that. There's a whole lot of work being done on JSON and some of those things out in ICMS, across WA and New South Wales. So what does that mean? There's a whole lot of work being done in Victoria. So I think from the government sector, there's a lot of opportunity for our government reps to present. But I'm hoping that across the private sector, we will also be presenting on that digital age and what it means for our businesses and what that looks like. So I'm happy to I want this to be as interactive as we can. So if you've got any questions as we go along, please feel free to put your mic on and ask the question, because the question you have is likely to be a question somebody else has. Okay, so let's make this as interactive as we can as we go through. So that's the theme. So it's important when you are working on your abstract that you keep that in mind and that you try to address that. And Volker, I think you would agree that if you can use any of the words that they use in your abstract, it probably helps in the assessment process. Would that be a fair statement to make?
Yes. I mean, it is not a must to relate your stuff to the theme. And depending on what you want to present, it might be a little bit difficult. But if you can do that, then it's certainly a bonus. And it also depends on, obviously, if you can relate to the theme and they have a limited spots available, a limited number of spots available, then they may choose those abstracts that relate to the stream. But because there's so many sessions going on at the same time, so even if your topic doesn't directly relate to the theme, I mean, I put an abstract in which is more about education, which is a big thing in one of the commissions. So that's where it gets important. I guess we're getting there soon, because you need to relate your topic to at least one of the commissions.
Yes.
And so if that's done, then that commission will look at your abstract and decide whether it can fit it into their sessions that they've got available in the program. But it's
Right.
always a bonus if you can kind of somehow relate to the theme.
I agree. Okay. So when you dive in and you go into the process, so firstly, I'm just going to say that uh, they are all about 10 to 20-minute presentations at FIG. Okay, so it's not like a normal Surveyors Australia or ACS event where you might, be asked to present for an hour or 45 minutes or, 20-minute increments now, or, we try to at least do half an hour, right, because of the point system that we've got in New South Wales. So these are not like that. They're usually you will get 20 minutes. Sometimes you will get 10 or 15. It depends on how many people they put into a session. So what they do is they take all the abstracts and they put them sort of together and say, oh, here's 5 abstracts that are kind of all about the same thing, sort of. So let's put all them into this session. So that hour and a half session has 5 people presenting. Okay, so I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, like, but how could I possibly present in front of an international audience for an hour? These are not abstracts for keynote sessions. So you probably won't be presenting in front of the whole of the FIG community. You will be presenting in small groups, a little bit like what we normally do at most of our events. Okay, some sessions might have more people than others, but most of the sessions that I've been in at FIG have about 30 to 40 people per, in the room. And I've done a couple of different presentations at FIG, and most of them have been certainly no more than 20 minutes. Okay, so I've presented on the demand study, and I've presented on sort of a combination of surveying careers and kind of what we're doing for that next generation. So, both of those only went for 20 minutes. And I'm not sure if there's anybody else on the call who's actually presented at FIG who might want to, jump in and share yours. So, but this is the process. When you go online to the FIG abstract website, which we'll try and put in the chat for you, this will be how it starts. Okay, so it's going to give you a title, and it's giving you a word limit of 100, and it lets you know when you're approaching it. Volker, do you have any thoughts on titles of sessions at this stage?
Or sessions of abstracts, you mean?
Yeah.
No, it's it really depends on what you want to talk about. It should certainly be short is good, and succinct. It has to be very succinct, so people read the title and kind of know what you're on about. So if you have a really long title, you could have a kind of a split it up with a colon or a hyphen if you kind of have a main title and then a bit more information. But it's usually better to have a shortish title.
Yeah, something that's catchy, I think.
Yeah.
Not too clever. Don't be too clever. Just, be real about what you're doing. Volker, can you talk a little bit about here, because it'll talk about, do you want to be peer reviewed, and about a peer review paper. Can you talk at all about that kind of concept?
Yeah, well, first of all, we should probably say, I'm not sure, there's also presentations only, I believe, without any papers at all.
There are, that's right.
So there's a difference between giving a presentation only, so you would only submit an abstract and then talk about whatever you did. If you submit a paper, then you need to document all that in a paper form, proper paper form, using their template that they make available, and that will then be submitted and published in the conference proceedings. And then if you want this paper to be peer reviewed, which generally only academics do, or like I will try to get mine peer reviewed as well. That basically means that up to 3 experts in the field will review your paper and provide comments, and then evaluate the paper, whether they think it's suitable for the conference and of a good enough standard to be a peer-reviewed paper. And then you can take that feedback on, make some changes to improve the paper. So there's generally 2 rounds of peer review. First, they tell you what changes you should make, then you kind of make them, or you might also then argue at certain things you don't want to change. And then it goes back to them and the editor as well to then decide whether you accept it or not. And if you accept it as a peer-reviewed paper at FIG, it also gets published in one of the journals. They do. Also, it's then clearly earmarked in the proceedings as a peer-reviewed paper. So that basically gives it a bit more kudos. And academics earn points basically for their research output when it's peer-reviewed. For most other people, it doesn't matter. And the deadline for peer-reviewed paper is the same as the abstract. So if you want your paper to be peer-reviewed, the whole paper has to be submitted by the 1st of December.
So again,
so obviously, if you haven't thought about any of that yet, then you probably missed the boat, because you won't be able to to write a paper in this time. If otherwise, for non-peer-reviewed papers, they are obviously then a lot easier. There's the deadline is a lot later, so that would give conference attendees some documentation to go to after the conference, and that will also be published in the proceedings on the website. So people can kind of then refer to that paper and reference your paper when they write their own on some topic. So that's why we at APAS always very much encourage people to provide a paper, even if they're not used to writing papers, to have something as a reference later on for people.
Yeah, and I mean, a paper doesn't need to be very long. When I do my APAS ones, there are a couple of paragraphs because, in fact, they've already had me submit my abstract for what I'm going to present in March next year. I don't know what's going to be happening in March next year, but I've done one anyway, and Volker has fixed it for me because he does that. He's excellent at it. And so I said, oh, you might want to just change it to this. Sure, that sounds great. So his editing is excellent. So look, I think when it comes to the paper versus the abstract, I think Volker's right. If you haven't really thought much about it, I imagine our academics, some of those in government who've possibly had to do this, or if you've already done some work on this, I know that there are some students who are graduating and doing stuff. They've got potentially some papers all ready to go. So again, if you've got something great, and if you don't, that's fine. I don't submit formal papers. I do just an abstract because that's sort of the nature of what I present. So remember, there's a mix of everything, and FIG is trying to make opportunity for those who must present papers, who must have peer-reviewed work because it helps their career journey, right? So for those of us in the private sector, that sort of thing doesn't matter. For some of you in the government sector, it helps you, and certainly for our academic friends, we know it helps them, and so that's why they do it. So don't be overwhelmed by that and let it sway you from not submitting anything. I guess that's really what I want to say about that. So let's have a good, clear title, something that portrays clearly what it is you're going to do, nothing too clever. Now, the next thing that it does, it sort of asks you to choose keywords, and there's lots of them, right? And so, what are you presenting on? Are you presenting on the conference keys like SDGs? Now, I'm going to be presenting on the SDGs, not SDG, the company in New South Wales, in case you're wondering. That stands for Sustainability Development Goals. I'm going to be submitting an abstract around that because we've got this assessment tool that we're using, and I'm hoping I'll have some good data from it by April next year. So, I would tick that box, for example. I'm not going to present on bridge surveying, but some of you probably might. Some of you, coastal zone management could be an area that you work on. Digital cadastre, some of these things we've been talking about. Engineering survey, GNSS, tunnel surveying. I'm hoping that Shorex and some of the others will present on, what's been happening across Australia here in the tunnels that have been going on. So there's a whole lot of areas there that they encourage you to tick some boxes for. And you can tick as many boxes as you like on this particular one. Maybe try and narrow it down a little bit, right? Try not to tick everything. Do try to be a bit clearer about what it is that you are representing there.
Yeah,
Kelly.
you probably should limit it to about 5.
Okay, good.
Keywords. That's usually a good.
Are the keywords, do they change every FIG? Are they specific to the Australian conference, or?
They look pretty similar to me over what's been in there the last couple of years. The conference keyword changes, but I would say it's been the same for the last couple of years, the keyword. But generally speaking, these are kind of the main topics that have come from the commissions that kind of fit their task force and what they want to talk about. And the keywords are used when they print the program. They kind of put that there. So it's sort of searchable data. And so if you're looking for something that you like, I want to go to sessions on positioning, you could search positioning and it would have that up there if you want to search for what you're presenting on. Yep. So, I'd like to do something on risk management. That sounds good. But I'd do business risk management, not surveying risk management anyway. Okay, great. So the next one then is authors and affiliations. So they're going to ask for your country, what organization you're from, and so on, and who is presenting with you. So are you presenting together with somebody else? Has somebody else helped author the paper that you've written, or is it just you? You know, totally up to you there. Affiliations, look, I'm going to encourage you. I don't have never used this option, but I would assume that you could put, you know, affiliation with Surveyors Australia. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that. I've never used the affiliation.
I always use that. That depends on who you were working for when you did that work.
Right.
So
if you've moved organizations or something.
Yeah. So if your organization has done this big surveying project and you want to talk about that, then obviously you're affiliate with that to give the company the due recognition.
Yeah, and so if you worked on a project, you're a private company, and you worked on a Transport for New South Wales project or a TMR project or Main Roads or something in WA, you might put affiliated with them. That's what you're thinking there, Volker.
Yeah, it's basically your employer. It's generally your employer.
Yeah.
And there will only be one presenter per abstract, but there could be several authors of that abstract because it might be a project where lots of people had input and you're presenting it also on their behalf.
Yeah. Luke, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm one of those students who I've just recently presented my research paper for my honours degree a couple of weeks ago at USQ.
Great.
So just with this kind of affiliation, so my project was it benefited my work at Mackay Regional Council. It was my project for Uni SQ. So with affiliations, because it's also a student project, is there any kind of precedents that you've seen before where this kind of I've got a bit of a mishmash of affiliations, but they're not also official affiliations? Just trying to see where I could go with that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I would think if you're employed by Mackay Regional Council, that would be your organisation, and your affiliation would be the University of Southern Queensland. That's my take. Volker, would you agree?
Well, you can, I don't know in this form, but usually you can put two affiliations in there as well, certainly on a paper. But in this case, you would have to choose one. Whether this, I mean, if it's a uni project, then it's generally the university. But if you have been employed by someone and did basically the project for them, then it might be that. So in the end, it doesn't matter because it's just a thing on the abstract.
It's just giving
for
credit
people to know a little bit.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
and then I would just decide, well, is it better for you to affiliate with the university or the employer? You might just have a quick chat to them and say, look, yeah, I can only use one. Which one? So that everybody's happy and it basically really reflects on where the work was done.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so then we get into the abstract, and they give you 500 words. Okay, so it's not huge, it's not long. Actually, it's about the same as an article you might write for the Surveyor magazine, if you wanna, just saying. So, is 500 words kind of 2 pages? Is that about right?
That's quite long, actually.
Yeah. So you don't have to write one that long, right? Mine are never that long. Mine are usually a few paragraphs. Although I will say the one I did for the demand study was 500 words because there was that was a 200-page book, and I had to condense it into 500 words and give credit to as many of the states and issues that were raised by that report as possible. So I guess it kind of depends on what you're presenting on.
Yeah. Also, if you're not present, or if you don't submit a paper on it, then it might be worth putting a little bit more detail in the abstract. Because if you actually submit a paper, then you might keep the abstract a bit shorter and have that more detailed information in the paper.
Yeah. So look, when you're writing the abstract, I think all of the normal processes around writing work, right? You need an introduction, You need a body, you need a conclusion. You know, what points are you going to, well, this is my view. Volker might have a different one, but I try to put like, what are the key points that I want to get across in this presentation? You know, what is the benefit from the audience who are going to hear it? How does it align with the theme of the, either the commission that I'm involved in or the theme of the conference, depending on, you know, what it is I'm presenting. But, you know, I think one of the things to remember when you're writing an abstract is that the assessors or the reviewers are going to read, I dare say thousands, 1,000 maybe, certainly hundreds of these abstracts. And they've got to cull them because not every abstract is accepted. And I can tell you that because I've had abstracts rejected. And so, you know, if I go back and look at the one that was accepted and the one that was rejected for this year, because I put in two to present last year and two to present this year. The one that was rejected this year, I think just didn't fit the theme, was more the thing. It was sort of a little bit too much like the one I'd presented last year, which was probably because it was the same. But I thought it would be a different audience. Anyway, so you've just got to have a little, and I mean, I'm at the Trimble conference right now, and I also had to present an abstract to be added to the program here. And I can tell you last year, my abstract was, or not last year, the year before, my abstract was rejected and I didn't get to present. But this year, my abstract has been accepted. And at Trimble, it's even harder for the kind of stuff I do because you have to say what Trimble equipment your presentation relates to. Well, mine relates to none, but don't tell them that, okay? I said it related to Trimble TBC. What is that? The business thing. Anyway, I don't know. Relates to business. Anyway, I'm presenting on you know, the future of surveying and the value of surveying. And so they just liked the topic and they liked what I'd put in the abstract, obviously. And so I actually am getting an hour's presentation, which is pretty exciting. So, you know, I think you want to use the principles of writing, of good communication in what you're putting together, and think about the audience, you know, who's going to be looking at it, who's going to be reviewing it, and, you know, what are the key points that you want to get across. Volker, what sort of things do you look like when you're assessing the abstracts from an APAS perspective?
Well, first of all, there should be no errors in it in terms of grammar and so on. It should be short, succinct, and informative, a summary of what you want to present. And usually for APAS, certainly the abstract is one block of text. It doesn't have any paragraphs in it. I don't know exactly what is acceptable at,
I think you can have
FIG, but
you can have paragraphs because they want 500 words, so
yeah,
or up to 500
okay,
words. So paragraphs are fine. I've never had any problems with paragraphs or bullet points in my FIG ones.
Okay, and then it shouldn't just list the topics that you want to cover. It should state the scope and the main objectives of the work that you present. Describe the methods that you used to solve a certain problem, for example, summarize the results, and then state the main conclusion. So it's really a succinct summary of the whole thing, but it needs to make sense. So in the beginning, you would set the scene with a couple of sentences so that people know, okay, this is the world you are in. And then, in other words, basically you have to answer these questions. What was done? Why was it done? How was it done? And then what were the results? And how were they interpreted? Why is this important? So it's just to kind of really tell a short story about what you have done and why that is important. So you may want to include phrases like "this presentation discusses," because then explicitly you say that. So you might have a couple of sentences to set the scene, to explain GNSS, for example, and then you go, or you have another couple of sentences that describe a problem, and then you go, "this presentation discusses or addresses or does something else. This paper outlines." And then when you go to the results, you say then that it was found that, or these findings indicate. You generally don't use I and we. It was generally in the third person. This abstract, as Michelle already said, will tell the organizing committee what your presentation is about, so they can evaluate whether it fits, and then to select and allocate a suitable session for that to be presented, if you accept it. So remember that the abstract will be the most widely read portion of the paper, if you do write a paper. If it is interesting, then the reader will most likely go and read the whole paper, or if you don't have a paper, then attend the presentation, because they will have a look at the titles. So that's why the title needs to be very informative as well, and not just kind of a cocky joke. It needs to actually have some meaning, so people know what your talk is about. And then they will read the abstract and then decide whether they want to attend that talk or not.
So does anybody have any questions about that? I mean, I certainly concur with Volker's view on the storytelling. We're not necessarily, I think in surveying sometimes we get a little bit too technical. Okay, now I understand if you're presenting a technical theme or a technical topic, GNSS, some of those things, I understand the technical nature of that, but you don't need to get into the technicalities in this abstract. You can get into that in your presentation when appropriate. But in the abstract, you want to highlight that, you know, this presentation will delve into the technical calculations required to achieve the end result for the house to be built straight. Something like that, you know what I mean? Like to meet the height datum requirements or whatever, you know. You can use all the right words without going into the specific detail. And I think the story and the what problem are you solving? What was the outcome and the benefit to people? I really like those things when I'm reading these. Or, you know, what problem in the industry, or what problem are you tackling, or what have you helped overcome? You know, those kinds of things, but certainly not in the first person. Any questions?
And also I should add, if you use any abbreviations, they should be spelled out as well, even if there are simple ones like Global Navigation Satellite System. Then you say that and then put in brackets GNSS, and then the next time you can use GNSS. So all abbreviations should be spelled out at first.
Yes.
And also I would not say this presentation will. It does. So for FIG, I don't think that matters. But for ABAS, for example, I always change that, edit that, because then for the proceedings that you then read afterwards, it just, to me, it just sounds better. So I would always kind of use that tense.
Any questions? This is the key part here. So now's your chance.
It is a good idea to just go to the previous FIG proceedings online and just have a look at a few abstracts as well for some topics that relate to what you're doing. Kind of search for keywords, or you can look at the commissions. So you can kind of read a few and see how they were written. I also encourage you to do the same on the APAS website. If you go to the APAS website and under resources, we've got all the proceedings for past years. So you can kind of just click on a title, and then either the abstract, or if it's a full paper, the full paper will come up with the abstract embedded. So you can kind of read a few of those on topics that relate to you, so you kind of understand how it's written.
I just also want to reiterate what Volker said about not using acronyms or abbreviations. We're very good at that, and we assume people know what it means. And in New South Wales or in Queensland or in Australia, we do. We know what ICSM is. We know what GNSS is. We know RTK. Da, 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 da. Don't assume the same language exists. I mean, mostly it does, right? But it's better because this is a professional paper. It's a professional piece of work. And other people go to the FIG website who might not understand. So think of it as a promotional tool for the profession as well. And just assume the reader doesn't know what it stands for. Okay. I often have to explain what FIG is because there's no S in FIG, but anyway. Okay. Right. Then after that, you choose which commission your paper specifically relates to. Now, there are a lot of commissions, okay? There are 10, and I think you can choose one or two or something, maybe only one. I'm not quite sure. You might be able to choose, look, it sort of relates to this one or this one, because that gives them the opportunity to put you in either cohort when they're thinking about where to put you to present. And some of them do cross over. So, you know, sometimes, oh, so we've got commission 5 there twice. Sorry about that. But, you know, sometimes positioning might cross over in spatial planning or in one of the others. Now, one of the ones we probably won't be involved in very much is commission 9. That's for the, you know, valuers. But construction, economics and management, you know, is almost the building side of things. And sometimes that can cross over and our engineering surveys get sort of crossed over there. So, you know, there could be some crossover, but have a little bit of a look at each of the commissions on the FIG website and be sure you know what yours is about. So often when I present, the topics that I present on are professional standards and practice or professional education. They usually cross those two fields. So I will tick both boxes and let them decide which category they want to put me in to present. So, you know, you will need to make yourself comfortable and have a bit of an understanding about which commissions exist, because what they do is when they put the program together, they will have them presenting. And so, you know, commission 2 will be competing, for want of a better word, with commission 7. And you can only go to one or the other, right? You can't, well, you can. When I was in Orlando, people came and went from, like I went to Volker's 20-minute presentation, then I left his session and I went to the next one, you know, and I'd go and hear John Brock talk on history. And then I'd leave that one and I'd go to the next one. So you can do that if they're following the program in exact timelines, but it often doesn't work like that. So you will need to have some concept about where you're going to fit in your commission. Volker, anything to add there?
Yeah, on the FIG website, there's a blurb for every single commission. If you go to the website and then to the call for papers, you scroll
We'll pull
down
that
a
up
bit.
in a minute. Yep.
Yeah, it has a few dot points for every commission, so it's a bit more detail on what they are looking at. So that should make it pretty easy then to find at least one, the main one that you think you fit in. And if there's another one that crosses over, you just put that in as well. I think you
don't
can,
leave it blank.
You might. No,
Like,
don't. You have
don't
to.
leave it
You have to
blank
definitely
because you
choose
have
one.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. Right. So then you review it. You can save it as a draft and come back later and submit it later. I have done that a couple of times. But once you hit submit, that's it, you're done. Okay, so do review it. Can I also recommend that you copy and paste your abstract into a Word document so that you've got a copy of it? So that, because you're submitting it in December and you're not going to present it until April, which means you're probably not going to prepare it until the 31st of March. Knowing most of you as I do, some of you the 5th of April. So you'll forget what you said you were going to talk about. Trust me. So do copy it into a Word document, keep it somewhere so that you can come back to it at a later time.
I do that the other way around, that I write it in Word first, and when I'm happy with it, I've read it several times and stuff, and I've got my keywords, maybe also extra ones. In this case, you tick them, so that's okay. Then I just copy and paste the word text into the website.
Yes, that's right. I do the same thing. I do it in Word first. So this was actually my, sorry, this should say 2024. This was the abstract that I put in for this year. Sorry, Volker, I don't have access to what you're going to submit. So we're just using my example. And I know that I'm not like most of you, but it's just an example to show you. Okay. So developing the value of surveying for future surveyors. I'm going to present it in English. It relates to Commission 1 and Commission 2. You'll see there's a couple of other options there for special groups. I said that it was about capacity building, education, and professional practice. So I only chose 3 areas. And I used some other keywords that went with my title. Now, whether they were used or not, I don't know. I don't think there's enough business options available in what they put out. So I always add the word business. Then this was my abstract. So you can see I did use paragraphs. I did use dot points. I did space it out to make it easier for the reader. Okay, so.
I can't
can't
see
see
the
it.
abstract.
Oh,
Yeah.
can't you see that?
There
there,
it is.
there it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. So yeah, so I did space it out for the reader. Now Volker might have changed this if if I'd given it to him to edit first. I did not, but perhaps I will for this year's. No, I'm just joking. So you could
That
edit
really
it right
depends.
before
It's
us. I
okay.
won't be embarrassed. I promise. If you'd like to edit my presentation or address things that I mean, I said one of the challenges we face in surveying, and Volker said don't use we. I did that because I was trying to relate to the reviewers.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
was
no,
talking
that
about we
it,
and yeah.
yeah, I use we as well sometimes. So
Okay.
it's but you certainly shouldn't be I in there.
Mhm.
And it just needs to flow nicely. And obviously, if you kind of say we as like humanity, for example, or a certain profession, then that's perfectly fine as well.
Yeah.
Because that's not a big hurdle. It just needs to sound good and make sense to the reader.
Yeah. And so for me, this was actually a presentation on the Business Academy and why we need to be teaching our surveyors about business if they're going to succeed in the private sector. But you will note I didn't use it. I mean, down the bottom, I talk about the Business Academy for surveyors, but I didn't use that anywhere up the top. Right. I really tried to break it down and use terms that I thought, we developed a training program for emerging leaders, pricing, and I broke it down. I didn't give them even some of the jargon that we actually use in the Business Academy. I tried to write it for somebody who knows nothing about what we do, who doesn't know anything about it, to actually read it, understand it, and, dissect it and appreciate it, I guess, and allow me to speak on it. And this was accepted. So I'm not saying it was the best abstract they received. I'm sure it wasn't, but this was acceptable. So I'm hoping it gives you an example, although probably none of you are going to present anything like I do. So as Volker said, do go and have a look at previous abstracts there. You'll note this is almost exactly the same because I recycle mine. So if you've done a presentation, Luke, what you presented at uni, absolutely don't reinvent the wheel. If you've already presented something great somewhere, then do it here as well. This gives you a bigger stage, a bigger audience, and so on. So I have changed my presentation slightly and I've adjusted it, but you'll see here, this is just one paragraph. This was the abstract that I used for Trimble Dimensions. I didn't go into as much detail because the audience was different. I think it was a different kind of approach, and so you have to write for the audience. It had a bit of a different theme, and actually I was rejected the last time, so I expected to get rejected again. So I didn't put as much effort in, and they accepted it this time. So I don't know what to say about that, but gives you some concept there.
If you present something at several conferences or events, then I would always change the title a little bit so it's clear that it's a different, that you've done it again, or it's a kind of different publication. If it's just a presentation, that's fine. You could use the same title, but if there's something written, for example, then we often do that. We have a technical paper that we publish at a conference, for example, and then we cut it down for articles for, let's say, Azimuth or Position magazine or something like that, where it's more general and has to be a lot shorter.
You
So
should
there,
submit
it's
something for
always
the
good
Surveyor
to.
magazine, Volker. I haven't had anything from APAS for the Surveyor. We'd welcome any submission you might have.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an APAS presentation. This is what I did when I was doing the demand study. So you'll see it's longer, one paragraph. This is the kind of approach that Volker prefers for what he's doing there with APAS. So it's got real data, it's got real numbers. So it's got a little bit more technical detail because it's actually off, as I said, a 200-page report. So, you know, I'm just giving you a bit of an idea about what they look like and I guess some of the differences there.
Yeah, and in this case, it was, I mean, the document was the big report, so
Yeah.
there was really no need to then distill that into a paper as well. So you basically summarize it in the abstract, and then if people want more information, they can read the full report.
Which we hope they did, of course. Okay, I think that's it for the slides. So really it's up to you now for any questions. I will pull up the FIG website to show you while you're thinking about questions that you might have. So if you've never been to the FIG website, this is it. It's just fig.net. Very simple, very easy to find. And, you know, you can find some more information here around the commissions under organisation. So you can read a lot more detail about each of the commissions there. You know, because this just gives you a thing. But if, let's say, you want to present something on positioning and measurement, it'll talk about what they do. Oh, actually, it doesn't give. Oh, it's just got this standard sentence, which I think it's got in the other one as well, in the abstract. So I'll just go back here. So you'll find the working week here on the right-hand side, and that takes you to the FIG page. Now, after you get your abstract accepted, they will give you a presentation template to present on. So, you know, they do help you through that process as well. But the submit your abstract is here. It'll give you a little bit of information on, you know, what's going on, the theme, what the program kind of looks like, what the formal things look like. The call for papers is here. So, you know, I think it's important that you read this to understand. I just gave you the opening paragraph there, but they're actually looking for things on new technology, people factor, technological advancement, you know, professional standards and competencies. I'll probably be trying to include something on that if possible, as well as the sustainability feature. So just have a bit of a read, you know, so that you understand what it is that they're looking for. But as you scroll down, you'll see that it gives you a bit of a breakdown of each of the commissions and what it is that they're about. Okay, so if you're thinking, well, is it really spatial information or is it really, you know, positioning, that might help you identify where you should be, you know, presenting that. And there is crossover. There's a big thing happening at FIG around some of the crossover. You'll note here on all of them that it gives you the sustainability goals that each of these commissions is seeking to address. So not that you have to, you know, include that or anything, but most of you are probably going to submit a regular abstract. So one of the things to note here is that this is the committee that's going to be reviewing papers and having a look at things. So, you know, you'll note quite a few Aussies here who are pretty active. They are the commission chairs. That's who these guys are, and girls. There's a couple of women in there. but they do come from all over, which is why you should be clear about, you know, what you're writing. So most of you are going to go to submit a regular abstract, and it's going to take you through, you know, that you have to create an account, set something up, and I don't think I have to create a new account. Oh, maybe I do. Anyway, sorry, I can't do that. I haven't done that. Returning users. Maybe I'm under my old one. I'll just quickly see if I can get in. No, can't get in. Sorry about that. I'll have to create a new account. So, yeah, and it'll take you through. Sorry, I'll just see if I can get in. It should be. No, I don't know what my password is. Try that. No, I'll log myself out now. You watch. Yep. No, I can't get in. Sorry. But you'll all work it out, right? Just create an account, set your password up, go ahead and do it. I mean, certainly from my end, if you want me to have a look at your abstracts before submit them, remember I'm not a technician, technically capable of understanding half of what you're going to present, but I'm very happy to talk it through with you and have a look at it. So if you want to call me before you actually submit on the 1st of December, then go ahead. I would encourage you to submit, certainly all of you here. If you want to send me a copy, I'd love to see your copy. Because the other thing that we can do is give you a practice session before the April date. So we've got a lot of events happening around the country before the April deadline. And so if we can give you an opportunity to practice after your abstract is accepted, then we'd be more than happy to do that as well if you feel you need it. Questions? No,
On the
you're all just.
website, on the
Yep, go on.
website, there's also more information about presenters and so on, so you can kind of have a look through that. There's a guide for presenters, then the important dates are set out again. So that gives you a fair bit more information as well, because there might be some that might be asked to do a video presentation as well.
Yeah, so this year.
Have you experienced that?
Yeah. So in Orlando, they did video presentations, and so I had one of my presentations accepted to present live, and the other one they asked me to do a video, and it was a 5-minute video or something. It was very hard to get it down to 5 minutes. I did that on Surveying Careers. And that was shown in a theatre. Bob and Mary came to watch it. I think they were the only ones watching it, but that's all right. So, hey, you know, it was an opportunity nonetheless. And it's out there and on the web somewhere, I'm sure. So, you know, a good opportunity. Any opportunity is a good opportunity to promote what we do, right? That's what you need to think about this as. So I'm happy to answer any questions as you lead up to it. I'm sure Volker would be happy if I can't answer a technical thing, I can flick it over to him and he'd be happy to help as well. But yeah, I think, you know, we want to have as many Aussies presenting as possible. So I encourage you to put a date in your diary between now and the 30th of November to get it up and get it done and get it submitted. And we'll look forward to seeing you all in Brisbane for sure. Great. Okay, well, thank you all for giving up some time this morning. We appreciate it. And we'll let you go now so you can start writing your abstract. I mean, you could do it right now. That's a really good idea. If you don't have any other meetings or something on today, then I encourage you to just take a half hour now and start coming up with the title and putting down a little bit of a draft about what it is you might present, hey? And then you can work on it more over the next month. Excellent.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Volker. Appreciate your
Michelle.
No
time
worries.
and your
Volker.
expertise.
Fantastic.
And
Good luck.
Thank
Ilka,
you.
I don't know if you missed the beginning, but this will be recorded and we will send it to you for those of you who missed it and want to catch up later. So it'll be good.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
See you.
Bye.